I kind of want to take that back to what's emotionally happening, and just to go back to that, which is that I've come to the conclusion after all of these years that clutter is it's either a displacement activity, so a way of avoiding dealing with some sort of trauma or dealing with something that we want to do. So, if you've got a dream that you want to be a painter, for example, and you don't want to face that fear of it not happening, or if you want to be an actor, or there's some sort of creative vision, or writing a book. So one way of avoiding that is to fill your house with clutter, and then tell yourself all the time that you've got to declutter, rather than tell yourself all the time that being creative would be good.
Firmer Figures knows your money, cuts down on strife. Time to trust your future. Firmer Figures, love your life.
The Firmer Figures Business Show is brought to you by Financial Gym Studios. Welcome to the only gym where someone else does the working out for you, where you get impartial tips and strategies in plain English to help you understand your money, love your business, and trust your future. Introducing your host, author, speaker, and creator of Firmer Figures, the cantankerous coach, Georgette Rowland Osborne.
Helen Sanderson is an interior designer, professional organizer, and founder of Ministry of Calm. An expert on how our living spaces affect our well-being, she speaks regularly at events such as Ideal Home, Grand Designs Live, and 100% Design. Her work takes her all over the capital, supporting people to clear their clutter, be more organized and efficient, and also free up time and energy to focus on what really matters to them. With her training in psychotherapy, she's an expert at dealing with clients' individual mindsets and situations, not just their clutter. Her premium and bespoke decluttering service supports people to let things go whilst keeping their precious memories intact. This I want to hear about. Helen has recently published her home declutter kit, which looks amazing. And it reveals the secrets of a simple 6-step process that will help you transform your home and clear clutter from your life fast. It's time to introduce the organized and calming Helen Sanderson. Hello, Helen. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
Hi, Georgette. Thank you for inviting me. Good to be here.
Now, before we go into it, we want to learn a little bit about you. Okay. So I'm going to ask you a few sort of what I call my icebreaker questions to get a little insight as to who is Helen before dig into what Helen does and how Helen can change your life. Because I do think what you do is life-changing, not to sound too woo-woo and corny about it. But before we go there, so if you had a celebrity best friend, who would you choose?
Well, it's going to sound really corny, isn't it? But probably Oprah Winfrey.
Do you know how many times I get Oprah?
I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It just goes to show, doesn't it? And what is it about? Because I haven't said that. I say that. But what the reasons people choose differ every time because we're all individuals. So what is it about Oprah that makes you want to, hang out with her?
I think it's her authenticity, her willingness to be vulnerable and share, and her depth. I find her really deep, and the way she interviews people, she can meet people at a very, very deep level, or a more, I wouldn't say superficial, but she can meet people where they're at, and I think that's an amazing skill, and I find it inspiring. And the picture of her and Soul Sunday sitting under a tree, I'd quite like to be sitting under a tree having a good chat with her about clutter.
In fact, what a great setting for that conversation as well. Indeed. Yeah. So, how can people tell if you're annoyed or fed up?
If I'm annoyed or fed up, it's not difficult. I'm quite forthright and direct. So generally, I don't hide very much. Sadly, I'd like to be able to hide more. So,
be inscrutable.
Yeah.
And when you are fed up, I'm your other half. What makes you feel better? What is it that gets you back on an even keel?
I think being grateful, remembering, things I've achieved or things that are going well. Walking in nature and getting my head back into a creative project.
Mm.
And I would say a foot rub.
Okay, live with them. Mine's pedicure, so we're close.
Okay, pedicure. Right.
Indeed. So this is funnily enough, this is probably the one question that probably doesn't apply to you, but bearing in mind what you do, but I'll ask it anyway. What in your life do you keep meaning to get around to, but it never happens, or it never happens enough?
Doing some of my own artwork again.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
And what does that take? What does that look like? What is that, for a hobby, or is that something you do some part of your business?
Well, I went to art school. That was where I started my journey. And so I have a love of just doodling and playing with paints and colours. So that's the thing that I never ever have time for. I keep looking forward to the day when I got more time to do that.
Indeed. So one of the things, and you wouldn't know this, but I always remember about you was meeting you at where were we? It was a Daniel Priestley event, and when we were sitting around a table and all having to discuss, what our challenges were. And one of the things I always remember about you, and it's true what they say, people don't remember necessarily what you say, what you do, but they remember how you make them feel. And I always remember I can't remember exactly what it was, but you were going through some challenges at the time in your business. And what you were doing, and there was no pretentiousness about it. You were just, it's like, when someone says, how are you, and people say fine, you were like, well, this is how it is. And you were so transparent. I remember thinking, wow, because at the time I wasn't able to do that. I just kind of just started out, and everyone wants to look like they're their best self. And I always remember that you had no issue with that, because what you were going to say was not only what you were dealing with, but would have helped other people sitting around the table. And that's always been my overwhelming memory of you.
Oh, wow.
Always like that transparency, like, this is who I am, this is what I'm going on, this is what's going on, blah, 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 but this is what I'm going to do. And it's like, okay, so it's okay to do that. And I always remember that about you. So with that in mind, tell us a little bit about the Helen. How did you come to be your own boss, and what did that look like in the early days?
In the very early days, it looked like not being able to hold down a job because I didn't like anyone telling me what to do. And then I kind of got more mature, and I decided that I should learn how to be an employee, which I did, and very much enjoyed aspects of that. But then I found that being in a small business, or I was working at a charity at the time, that I wasn't able to express my creativity and my own ideas, and that I had to toe the line to a certain degree. And I've started to feel like if I don't jump and do this now, then I never will. So I decided that I was going to set up my business and express the gifts and talents I've been given. So.
And how long ago was that?
It was probably in different forms about 15 years ago, but because I started part-time, and then it was maybe about 9 years ago that I went full-time. So I've been plugging away at it for quite a few years now.
And when you began, what did it look like in the beginning? Were you working from a back bedroom, a dining table? Did you go and get an office? Was it just you? Did you have people with you?
What it looked like was I live in a small flat in London, and my living room became very cluttered. That's what it looked like. I was doing interior design projects at the time, and I had loads of samples and sample boxes and catalogues, and it was just horrible. And so I decided that I would have to get an office space, partly because the boundaries between home and work began to merge, which I'm sure most people who are self-employed know about. But also it was starting to take over my living space, and it was not, it was almost like I was living in a contradiction to what I was preaching. So not that I'm a preacher at all.
I hear you. And so when you started out, what were you actually doing? Because obviously we'll get to your latest product and services, but what were you doing then? Because I always think of you as a designer.
Mm-hmm. I was at the time designing quiet rooms, so calm meditative spaces, and the project that I feel most fondly about was the reflection room that I did for Marie Curie up in Newcastle. So I was doing that, and actually it was at the time of the recession, so it was a very difficult time to be designing spaces that businesses and companies generally felt were a bit of a luxury that they couldn't afford. So at that time I set up my decluttering business as a way of supporting as a complementary business in a way. So I felt that I was, on the one hand, designing the ultimate space to be, which was a beautiful, calm, uplifting space. And then on the other hand, I was going and helping people who were right at the other end of the scale, in complete and utter chaos and mess, get to a bit of a more of a middle place, which is a bit more order and calm in their home. So wherever I started, I guess that's where I'm headed, trying to create some order and calm in the home.
And how did you go about actually acquiring clients then? I mean, bearing in mind on top of it, you were in a recession. So what sort of strategies and tactics maybe did you employ to get your first few customers? And then obviously when you pivoted into more the decluttering, how did you find people? Or did people find you?
People mostly found me, and mostly by referral, because the designing quiet rooms is quite a specialist thing. So I did have a website, and I did participated in a writing of a booklet and did a talk at a conference. So there were several things that at that time I was doing. And then with regards to the decluttering business, actually what I did was created a flyer, and actually that was the time when I left my full-time job, and I felt, if I don't have to support myself, maybe I'll never make this business work. So I made a flyer, and I did the old-fashioned thing and went and posted it through people's letterboxes.
Wow.
and I felt that in a way it was my kind of message to the universe that I was prepared to walk my talk, or actually put the message out there. It's quite, I'm very interested in symbols and metaphors, and there's something very symbolic about walking with your message and putting it through people's doors, which is, your message can get so lost online and in the internet. It's a very powerful tool, but there's something very personally powerful about creating a flyer and posting it through doors. Not that I'm going to promote that as a good way of marketing, but it was a good way. It was a good starting point for that aspect of my business, and it really did, help me get behind myself, if that makes sense.
Yeah, sometimes it's creating your own mindset before you.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's funny, I did that just earlier this year. I created a little brochure because one of my niches are property agents.
Mm-hmm.
I did a little brochure just for them, and did a few and sent a few out. I haven't done anything offline like that for ages, even though my business is offline.
Mm-hmm.
Still, a lot of it is referrals and so on, and you connect online and use all the stuff. But anyway, I did the brochures and sent a few out, a few cold, and then one of them took it originally. I only did a few because I was being lazy about it, because much as I'm saying the mindset and so on, it was like, oh, they're pretty, shall I do it?
Yeah.
Just to cut through the noise.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them took it and handed it to someone else and said, I think this is you.
Mm-hmm.
And they put it out somewhere. I can't remember. They were looking for someone to come in and do some consulting with them. And so I responded to it, and they remembered they had the brochure.
Great. Yeah.
And I said, how serendipity is that? I'm not saying that was the only one I sent out, but it was just that it happened to be one of them. And I thought they only remembered it because it was physical.
Exactly. And that, I mean, in a way that kind of leads on to what I do really, because I work in physical time and space. And people have often said to me, have an online course, and I'm thinking, yeah, but people really need me to be there. People need help, someone in the room, or they need a kit that is in the room, helping them. There's something about, being in this time space 3D world that we live in that, we're never going to escape unless we become just thought forms, I guess.
Yeah. Being vectored very Doctor Who here, Len.
No, sorry.
So let's take it back, and you don't have to relate it specifically to finances, because actually in my experience, finances are just another symptom of all the other stuff, the culmination of stuff going on. So in your experience, what do you see happening with people? And bearing in mind we both work for ourselves, particularly in the entrepreneurial world, but obviously some of these people are employed, and they're probably just as entrepreneurial within their work, their employment, because you're facing a lot of the same overwhelm, a lot of the same issues. So what is it that you come across in people that makes them recognize, or you recognize they need your help? What some of the symptoms, I think, for want of a better word?
The symptoms, I mean, I would say that the two key things that people say to me when they speak to me on the phone is, I'm overwhelmed and I don't know where to start. And usually that leads to a feeling of shame that something as simple as tidying up or sorting out the house they can't do. And then that leads to, the more you get into shame and self-critic, that leads to paralysis and not doing. So I didn't hear the whole question because it cut out a bit, but I hope that answered your question.
Yeah. So let's just say, and funny enough, it's interesting that you say that people call up, and even though they're feeling a sense of shame, they actually say, this is what I need you to do. Because in my world, I very rarely get that. The sense of shame is so strong that they always ask for something else.
Okay.
And I have to dig deeper and go, what they really need is this. And sometimes you can't say it.
Yeah.
So money throws up a lot of, makes you look back at yourself and not always be happy with what you see. It's a physical currency of all the things that you think you do wrong. All right. But if it's wrong. So that, I'm glad you said the shame, because I come across that quite a bit. But I very rarely get people who will say, this is what I feel. They'll, especially if they're business, and I deal with a lot of men. So it's, I need to get this done. And then, and then you realize what's going wrong, why they need to get it done. Yeah. So what is usually going wrong for these people on a physical sense? Because you're very clear that you need to physically be present. So what is physically happening to them?
So physically happening, I kind of want to take that back to what's emotionally happening, and just to go back to that, which is that I've come to the conclusion after all of these years that clutter is it's either a displacement activity, so a way of avoiding dealing with some sort of trauma or dealing with something that we want to do. So if you've got a dream that you want to be a painter, for example, and you don't want to face that fear of it not happening, or if you want to be an actor, or there's some sort of creative vision, or writing a book. So one way of avoiding that is to fill your house with clutter, and then tell yourself all the time that you've got to declutter, rather than tell yourself all the time that being creative would be good. Do you see what I mean?
Actually, you've just given me a thought, because I'm a neat freak.
Okay.
And to the point where my sister and I reckon we're borderline OCD.
Yeah.
I like things in its place. Yeah. But actually, as you say that, I've always put it down that I'm tidying up. That's why I'm not, haven't got this done. Mm-hmm. I never looked at it as decluttering. I saw it as tidying up. Okay. Makes sense. So though I don't get messy that often. Yeah. So I imagine, there was a picture I think a customer of yours put up of a room where it was the before and after. Yeah. And I remember looking at it and thinking that anything would have been after in that room. Yeah. So I'll never get to that. But it doesn't mean, I mean, are there degrees of mess before you get to clutter? Because my decluttering could just be labeling folders. It's not that there's papers everywhere.
You know, there's always degrees, isn't there? So if I was working, you know, with somebody who was really, really in a mess, that if we could get 1 or 2 steps forward, that's going to be progress. You know, if somebody is really, really anally tidy, then maybe just learning to relax a little bit might be 2 steps forward for them. You know, so you always start off with where somebody is in the first place. But the thing about, you know, I mean, quite often it's, you know, it's been talked about in terms of putting on weight, for example, that, you know, people might put on weight as a way of protecting themselves from meeting someone. So even though they might want to meet someone, they kind of sabotage it a little bit by doing that. So sometimes people say to me, you know, I do a process where I get asked people to set goals and objectives before they start their work, and we do that in the Home Declutter Kit as well. And so sometimes people say, well, I feel too ashamed to invite anyone around to my house.
Yeah, I've heard that.
We would set a goal whereby, you know, their objective is to open their home, you know, so that they feel comfortable to invite someone in. So if you're single and your house is full of clutter, you're not going to want to invite someone home, are you? So then it makes you question, what's the strategy that the clutter is really fulfilling? And often, to go back to your question about, you know, what's actually happening physically, people tell me that they like to go shopping. Obviously, Amazon Prime is a prime example. You don't even have to go shopping anymore, but clickety click, and then you filled the house. And so you filled your house and your time and your sense of emptiness inside with stuff. And let's face it, you know, wherever you look, advertising and marketing is all about consume, 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 isn't it? So we're kind of fed this lie or this perspective on life that in answer to our loneliness or in answer to our sadness or depression or whatever's wrong with your life, you just need to consume. So I think people often with clutter have got into some of those traps and ended up consuming, you know, whether it's been Prada bags or just nice bargains from the charity shop that they've rescued. You know, there's still ways of bringing things into the home which, you know, it just ends up being too much.
And actually, and as you say that, and maybe, you know, you might have a more considered take on it. As you talk about clutter in the form of buying stuff, what I've come across as well, because I work with quite a few people who are in the online space, or is very, I mean, that's becoming more blurred now, online, offline, and so forth, the digital world, I suppose, in that the form of clutter also has taken on a digital form.
Absolutely.
Where, you know, where people are constantly buying courses, reading, you know, this thing of, oh, I read a book a day or I read a book a week. Well, when do you get anything done? I mean, I've never been turned on that, and I'm a reader. I'm totally a book person, but there's a point, you know. So I read a book a day. I go to conferences. I do so. The method of avoidance or consuming, and it's harder to break that one, because when you go and buy a handbag or a pair of shoes, which is me, you know deep down, did I really need that? Yeah. But when you do it in the spirit of self-improvement or self-development, I think sometimes there's an element of delusion there, because we're constantly developing ourselves, but not actually doing anything.
Yeah.
And I don't know how much you come across that in your, and any sort of bits of advice. Well, one, why you think that's happening, if it's for the same reasons, because obviously it's a slightly different leaning, and how you maybe pair that back to concentrate on getting to the declutter of maybe your business life as opposed to just your environment.
Actually, I think that for me, the reason I started doing this, I mean, I'd done it decluttering a few friends. I felt that I had a kind of a natural instinct to know how to help people. And And I actually decluttered myself, not because I had a lot of stuff, but I did have a lot of paperwork. And it was an incredibly insightful process, because I realized that if you were to put all of my paperwork in different categories, the personal development file would have been massive, and the developing my finances file would have been probably non-existent.
You're normal, Helen.
Until
the majority.
And the health, so it was such a good overview of how out of proportion my life had become. And at that point, I made a decision not to do any more personal development, not at that time anyway. And that I needed to be in the world and stop learning about, stop being a student and be more of a teacher and be more of a participant and develop my business, which is what probably one of the things that inspired me to get on with creating my business. So the thing about consumerism, it's all a strategy, isn't it, of avoiding being with ourselves, being here now, and being okay with where we are. Because this I guess, again, if you talk about marketing and advertising, it helps you feel crap about yourself enough to go and do something, do one of these courses. And if you do one of these courses, then you'll feel, you'll feel better, and you'll feel good, and you'll feel fulfilled and all of that. But actually fulfillment comes from within, doesn't it? And I think fulfillment comes from being with ourselves, being in nature, and being creative. So that's what I really hope when I work with people, is that they can make room for their future, or make room for a creative project, or make room for a new career, or creating space for something new, which is really the whole purpose of decluttering. And in a way, you don't even have to have a lot of clutter. It's again that thing about, when I talked about my leaflets and stepping in behind myself and putting in the footwork. When you physically create space, it symbolically creates space. Do you see what I mean? It's like it can be almost quite a meditative ritual to just go, okay, I'm going to clear this space, and because the cup cannot be filled if it is full.
It's funny. I kind of crossed a boundary, because you say that. I went and bought. I use dual. I have triple screens in my office, so I have the dual screen, and then sometimes there's a third, and they're all on stands. And it was just, I'd made up my mind I couldn't work because it was just so messy looking. So I went to, it wasn't Amazon Prime, but it was Amazon. And I went and bought one of those. It's like a stand, and it takes two screens, and it takes it, sort of suspends it in the air. And I bought those. So now my defense is I was decluttering, but it's almost as if I couldn't function, but I'd made up my mind that in order for me to really be productive, I had to have them. As it happens, every time I walk in and I go, is that feeling of that space, you say? And I really enjoy sitting down in front of them and seeing sort of space behind them. It's really weird how such a small thing.
But I think that, that's where being honest with yourself is, isn't it? Because everybody does it. Everybody knows if they've got an essay to write, suddenly the kitchen fridge is clean, and and that's a displacement activity. And it's also getting the table clear so that we can think straight. So it's a paradox in a way.
Yes.
Yes, of course we need to clear the decks so that we can think straight and be creative, which is why I help people to declutter. But also, if you're always finding, but if I just get that, and if I just have this, or if I just do that workshop, or if I just have that pair of shoes, or if I just have that dress, then I'll feel ready for dating. Then that you're in a little trap of a little bit of self-denial.
What do they call it? Analysis paralysis.
Yes.
I need more. What if I just check this? What if I check that? So taking it now, looking at your declutter. Well, in fact, let's look at the product first. So, and it is beautiful, by the way. So if we could paint a picture for us, and there it is. I've just bought it, and I've opened up this lovely looking thing. What do I get, and where do I start? I don't want to give away the farm too much, because obviously we want people to go and buy it. But tell me what it is that I'm receiving when I open it, and what are the little small changes that will occur, or I need to make to get the best use of it from the early stages?
What you're going to get is a box, a set of cards, and a book. And also, we offer a free Facebook community group for people to get support and encouragement from other people that are decluttering. And it's a confidential group, so it's a private space. So in the book, it sets out the 6 steps that I recommend people go through when they're decluttering. And the first step is really the one that I talked about earlier, which is about setting a clear objective so that you know why you're doing it. And it gives you that focus when you hit that wall of boredom or frustration or overwhelm. Oh yeah, this is why I'm doing it, because I made a commitment to myself that I was going to clear my space so that I could invite some friends around. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So that's I would say, one of the key aspects of getting really clear, and you're getting your mindset straight and getting clear about why you're doing it, because it's not going to be easy. And I've had people say to me when I've worked with them, gosh, Helen, it's brutal, this process.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's hardcore. You know, if you really do it intensely, and how I recommend people use this kit is as if you're doing a liver cleanse. You know, that you stop eating, you stop everything that you're doing, you just do the decluttering. So you do it for a whole day, you do it for 2 days or whatever. So if you were doing a liver cleanse, you would just completely give yourself over to it, and you wouldn't try and sit there and do your emails or do meetings and stuff like that, or eat chocolate, you know. So you have to sort of put everything aside and say, right, I'm just going to have a devoted chunk of time and detox my house. Not my liver, but my house. Mm-hmm. So in the kit, there's, and I say there's 4 kits in one. So you've got your green cards, which I call the core set. So you could just use those and not use any of the others. So the core set are, you know, the basic cards like keep it, recycle it, donate it, bin it, action it, things like that. And then you would use the blue cards to customize it. So, for example, people have often said to me, "Oh, I really want to sell things. It's really important to me that I can, you know, I spent money on this and I want to sell them." So the reason I didn't put that in the core set is because sometimes saying you're going to sell something can be another way of avoiding letting it go. And also, you know, there can be a delusion around, well, how much time would it take to put something on eBay and how much money are you actually going to make from it? So the sell it card is really for if you've got something, you know, say you've got that Prada handbag that you're never going to use, yeah, sell that. So you use the blue cards to customize. So again, if you've got kids, then you can pull in the toy box, or if you're a really creative person, you've got art supplies, then use the art supplies card. So that's the essence of the blue cards. And then we've got the paper declutter kit, and which I'll come back to, and then the wardrobe declutter, and then the last one is the honouring memories. So sometimes one of the struggles people have is that they feel quite sentimental about some of the stuff. So, you know, I talk about, you know, maybe you can photograph it, or maybe you can make a creative project. So there's a lovely organisation now that will turn clothes like your grandfather's shirt into a teddy or a cushion cover or something. So yeah, there's ways that you can make some of these objects into a creative project. So you can still keep them, but you just recommission how they live in your life, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. So the paperwork set you would use with your core set, and I mean, I love the paperwork set because everybody. I did a whole day of paperwork with somebody yesterday, and it was incredible how much, you know, a massive box of papers went out. So it's so liberating, because you think of, I mean, if you think about it in terms of energy, that's all thought energy that you just don't need anymore. Mm-hmm. And then so letting go of a lot of paperwork, and I call the letting go process the weeding process. So like you're weeding a garden, you can't create a beautiful garden until you've done the weeding. So you can't create a beautiful paperwork system, financial system, filing system or anything until you've got rid of all the stuff that you don't need that's out of date. And then, so once you've done your weeding, you then do your categorizing, and then you do your filing, putting things away if you've got any paperwork left. There is a card for digitizing, so we do recommend that people go digital as much as possible.
That's my world. In fact, that's in more recent times how I've got financial clients, because I digitize all their office.
Yeah.
And so, and it starts off because what I've learned to do is just treat that separately, because sometimes when, say you've always done something in a certain way, even if it's their finances, some people have never done their finances, but a lot of them are proper businesses where they've got staff and offices and so forth. And a lot of it is the feeling, well, how am I going to move? And I'd look at them and say, oh, so those filing cabinets, I can have them gone. And you actually be more efficient. And because we do the bookkeeping side remotely, I had to, what was happening was, you take on a customer and you say, well, we can have a virtual relationship. And then what you do is, I realized what was happening was they were ending up more overwhelmed than before we connected, because now they've got to create systems their end in order to get things to me.
Yeah.
So I had to create a way to make that easier. And that became a service in itself.
Yeah.
So I basically moved them into the cloud and sorted all of that out. And then they'd say, can you carry on?
Yeah.
So they were no longer overwhelmed by the task ahead, and they were no longer overwhelmed by being committed to a long-term service. You just do it in stages, because it can be quite confronting. And then obviously you're already trying to get people to talk about their finances, which is confronting. And then they've got to admit that they're actually quite disorganized, or that they've got no control over their staff because the staff do what they want, or there are no systems, and it all just escalates. And people then just say, you know what? And often when people say no to working with somebody, it isn't that they don't want the thing, but all the obstacles that they have, all the hurdles they have to climb. So I made it my business to concentrate on the hurdles rather than the end game. So that, well, let's just do, they know in sales, just get the meeting.
Yeah.
And now you've got the meeting. Well, now just work out what the requirement is. Now you've got a requirement. Now decide whether you can solve the problem, rather than walk in and let's do a sale. And it's actually changed everything for how I work with people. So listening to what you sound can totally resonate. And moving on from that, because obviously our paper's my thing anyway, let's go a little bit into the wardrobe for a bit. Give it a little insight into
Lion, the Witch in the Wardrobe.
It's just the witch, and then you live with somebody and you share wardrobe, because I used to have wardrobe space in 3 rooms. Just spread across them.
Oh, well done.
Now you have to, my daughter and my son get their own room, so I've got to take my crap out.
Good.
And I still, I need more space, and that is my Achilles heel. I do try the one thing in, one thing out. That has been one of my rules. Not so good at it, but from an expert like yourself, well, a couple of ways to manage the wardrobe overwhelm.
So, depending on how much space you got, and obviously I work with a lot of people in London that don't have much space and don't have the luxury of a walk-in wardrobe. Having a winter-summer swap around can often help. So that's the first thing. And then, like you say, categorizing things into colours, categorizing things into sections. But having a big cull, basically, it's about, again, being honest with yourself. Do you really wear this stuff? Are you really going to wear it? Does your lifestyle support having, several party dresses? If you never go to a party anymore, or if you used to work in corporate and you had all these suits, then do you still need all that? And the thing that stops people letting go of that stuff is, but these are really expensive suits, Helen. I spend a lot of money on those. And I say, well, keep 1 or 2 at the most. So often, and then I work with people. I mean, I just did a wardrobe declutter with a journalist from the Good Housekeeping, which you can find online on my page. And she had, she had about 6 pairs of gym things, and it was all bulging out of the drawer. And I said, look, you know, this is the basis that I would use, one to wear and one to wash. So, you know, so if you've got that, that's
Helen, I'm feeling the pain.
I know it's painful, but then, you know, then we did negotiate, and she said, you know, can I have one for, you know, every other day, you know, whatever. I think we got it down to about 4 or 5.
Down to 4 or 5.
Yeah, down to 4 or 5. I know, exactly.
I'm not that bad.
But it, you know, so and again, you know, so first is the weeding, the cull, then it's the organising, and then it's the maintenance. So, and the maintenance bit comes on 1 in, 1 out, or 2, or 1 in, 2 out, or something like that, you know. But you've got to do it. You know, I had someone say to me, "Oh, I get subscribed to all these newsletters," and I said, "Well, just you know, do it every day. Otherwise, you know, when are you going to find a day to unsubscribe to 100 newsletters?"
Yeah. Yes.
If you maintain it and you just keep sort of chipping away and sort of nipping it in the bud, then it doesn't get out of control. So that's the same, I would say, with the wardrobe. And then choose, what can I say? You know, do you really wear them? You know, yes, keep your favorite pairs, keep your special memories, but you know, if you can photograph them, even better. But I mean, I don't know. I personally find it quite overwhelming to remember to pull out. I mean, I don't have lots of shoes, to be honest, but you know, gosh, those red shoes, I haven't worn them for ages. I'm going to have to dig them out from under the bottom of the wardrobe. Do you see what I mean? It doesn't happen.
Well, I mean, I did look at mine a few months ago, and I went, I categorically don't need any more shoes.
Yeah.
I really, and I do cull. Yeah. And I thought, I really, you know, every eventuality, to the point where I don't know, you might go out on a day when it's warm, it's not winter, but it's not warm enough to maybe go without tights, or there's some kind of dilemma. And I think, I've got just the shoe for that. And I don't have shoes in the way like I used to as mad, because I did get rid of, but it was surprising to me that I could look at it and think, no, I do have enough. There was never enough before. There was always, that's a bargain. That's nice. I love that. That. And I thought, no, I you know, and if I don't have the one that then I'll change what I'm going to wear to match what is in the wardrobe. So that is quite true. And it's funny what you say about the newsletters as well, because literally today I was going through some stuff before I spoke to you, and I thought, I have unroll.me. And I found that was overwhelming, because I didn't realize how many so that became a job, going through that. And I thought, you know what, no, I'm just going to, as I see them, open, do I want this? Unsubscribe. So over time, it will, because it was exactly what you were saying, the consumption of information, because everything's relevant, and I have a lot of financial ones coming in, and I had to say, do I really read that, or am I keep it coming just in case? That fear of missing out. So I figured, well, if I miss it, I won't know. So just get rid of it and get on with something. So you talked about, like, for example, the lady with the Good Housekeeping and so on. How does a customer like that come into your? I mean, you say you get referrals. So is the actual service, you go to their house for a day and walk around with them with the box, or is there another way?
Yeah, I beat them up with the box.
Get over here! Oi, lovey, get over here.
So I've got a website, and I go and see people in their home, and I've got some people that are helping me now, because I can't actually physically get around to enough houses, and people are asking me to travel various places as well outside of London. So, I mean, one of the reasons I developed the Home Declutter Kit was because I'd been using these cards in my work with people, and several of my clients had said, you know, can I photocopy the cards, and can I, you know, if you had these, I'd buy them from you. And I had this vision that I wanted to make this kit available to more and more people, that I wasn't going to be able to reach everybody, that I'm only me, and that I could reach more people in different places, in different parts of the world, and people who couldn't necessarily afford the luxury of an organizer. You know, maybe someone who's got a bit of clutter, they could find a friend and use the kit together and the process is all outlined step by step. So we commissioned an illustrator to make it a beautifully illustrated and an inspiring thing to take off the shelf and use. So that's kind of my hope, is that if I can't reach people, if they can't afford my services, or they live in Australia, and that they can get the kit and they can get the basic tool that I use and do it themselves. So that's really my hope, that I can reach more and more people.
Indeed. And if somebody wants to get hold of the kit, where can they find it? What's the URL and web address?
So you can go to homedeclutterkit.com. It's available there, or it's available on my website, helensanderson.com. And it's also available on Amazon. So if you go to Amazon and search Home Declutter Kit, it comes up, and they'll send it to you on Amazon Prime.
You got to stop with the Prime, Helen. I'm weak. I'm weak.
I do love Prime, but I can tell I'm going to write a blog about how Prime is not Prime for my
perils. The perils of Prime.
Perils of Prime, exactly.
Okay. And bring us up to date, and to end again on you.
Mm-hmm.
How are you different today, looking back at your journey from starting up your business? See, as many people did, leaving employment because just knew that you wanted to do your own thing. Go back those 9 to 15 years at Helen then and Helen today. And if I knew both Helens, what is different about the one today to then?
Well, I would say that there were good things and bad things, like anything. I'm much stronger, which is a good thing, and more determined and more confident. But I probably maybe a bit too tough sometimes. Business is really hard, and actually creating this declutter kit was probably one of the hardest things I've ever done, because every single obstacle that the universe would throw at me came my way, and I had to just become, all my friends were saying, Helen, just accept the universe is saying no. And I just say, no, it doesn't work like that in my head. I don't agree. I just think it's just another challenge that I need to overcome. So I've become probably a bit more belligerent than I was before. But I've created this beautiful product which I love, and I hope that other people love using it too.
And I'll link to it in the show notes, and all the other links and stuff you have, so people can connect and take a look for themselves, because it is lovely. I remember when you announced it, and I remember thinking, because I'm a very visual person, so ignoring even what the content was, it caught me anyway. And obviously what you do also appeals to, as you say, the emotional side as well. So I love it, absolutely love it. So definitely gonna, when I stop procrastinating, go and get one.
Well, what I would say to you, if you are procrastinating, is join the Facebook community, Home Declutter Kit community. Pledge a goal and when you're going to do it. So, for example, if it's your wardrobe, you can say, I'm going to declutter a minimum of 10 things from my wardrobe. On Saturday morning at 11, I'll post a picture before and I'll post a picture after.
Oh, cool. Okay. Yeah, that's great. Yeah, that's great. Yeah.
And I've got people, one person from Hungary is, posting her journey about her decluttering. So it's a place to go where, other people who understand and are forgiving and not judgmental, where you can pull in a little bit of support. So that's a place to go.
And to feed my marketing audience, who are many, surprisingly.
Yeah.
You said you have a Facebook group. How did you go about getting people to join your group and getting people to never mind the participation, because that's almost a separate thing, but just getting the word out there and getting people to join up?
The thing is that we crowdfunded this declutter kit. So there have been, before it even arrived, we had a lot of orders for it. So we pretty much added all the people that had bought one, pledged for one, and invited them to stay if they wanted to. So that was how it started, really, with the people that started supporting the seed idea. So they're, if it wasn't for them, I wouldn't be here talking to you about my kit.
No, I know, it was great. I just wanted, because I'm thinking I want you to get the crowdfunding bit in. Yeah, because it was actually a great campaign. So, and a lot of people don't realize that you can use it in that way. I mean, it's more widespread now, but I think it was quite clever how you use the crowdfund to create something like a community, not just try to sell a product.
Yeah,
I think that's quite inspired and so on. Helen, thank you so much. I am feeling suitably calm.
Good.
And ready to go and declutter again. I actually did print something off many moons ago with a list, but it wasn't as, for example, you say, do it at this time, and you have such specific goals, and you quantify.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the subtle difference, what I love about the way you approach it.
Yeah.
So I'm inspired to go and do. So thank you so much. I'll definitely put the links to all your stuff in the show notes. And if I'm feeling overwhelmed again, and I'd like, maybe get in touch again and let us know how, because I'm sure what you're doing is going to evolve even broader than what you're doing now.
And can I just give your listeners one last little thing to think about, which is, rather than going out and buying a thing, if you really want to spend money on yourself, buy an experience. Or if your your kids' grandparents are buying them too many toys, ask them to buy them an experience. Take them to a show, or the zoo or something. I don't know, just anything. Rather than filling your life with stuff, fill it with memories.
I couldn't agree more, because my love language is do things with me.
Oh, that's lovely.
So you can buy me stuff, I like it, but I so agree with you, because you won't forget the present, but you will remember the trip to Disneyland. Well, it wasn't Disneyland anyway.
Yeah.
So that's brilliant. Thank you for that, Helen.
You're welcome.
Lovely.
Okay, you take care.
Thank you so much for being here. Just a quick note to let you know that I'm building a safe, judgment-free place for women and families to share and support each other's financial struggles and successes. As well as being able to ask me questions directly, you'll get tips, training, resources, and tools to help you deal with how your money affects your business, your freedom, and your relationships. If you'd like to take a peek at what this family is all about, type the web address firmerfigures.com into your browser, or go straight to Facebook and search for Firmer Figures Financial Freedom in groups, and then click to join. I can't wait to meet you over there. See you there.
Firmer Figures knows your money cuts down on strife. Time to trust your future. Firmer Figures, love your life.